going to be the start of a new series where I try to survive 100 days in Minecraft using a variety of different mods. These mods will often give various different buffs and nerfs towards the Minecraft player, giving some new useful things to the player as well as giving some new things to hurt at their side. Today's 100 day challenge is a string of origin mods. Essentially speaking, the origins mod gives you advantages and disadvantages based upon what class you choose to take. For example, in this video we're picking a bee. The bee has the ability to fly, as well as many other bonus abilities, plus also being smaller, having less overall health, and water hurting you. Essentially speaking, the idea is to complete as much as possible in 100 Minecraft days without dying. Also start off with a golden clock in order to be able to track the time. Either way, with all the explanation out of the way, let's actually get started. Starting off with day 1, we spawn into a lovely plains biome, but the moment we turn around from our spawning point, we see a village not too far from spawn. I fly out to check out my surroundings. I see that I'm surrounded by 2 savanna biomes for 2 directions, plains biome by another direction, and then the village into the ocean in the other direction. With the knowledge of my surroundings in tow, I head over to the village to explore its surroundings and see what loot I can find on the inside. Okay, for me, there are 2 blacksmiths within this village. First blacksmith supplies me with 2 ingots of gold, 5 ingots of iron, and 2 bits of bread. After raiding this first chest, I decide to chop down a couple of trees. Find another chest contained in one of the village houses. It has a collections of food, some nuggets, some tree saplings, and a flower. I'll take almost all of it. Before I leave that house, I also take one of the 2 beds. After chopping down another tree, I go around, collect some of the flowers around the area because I will need these to take advantage of my abilities, as well as to get some hunger up when I lose it, because that's the only way I can gain hunger. I amply make myself an iron pickaxe and an iron sword, as well as a golden shovel. But after crafting these set of tools, I do find the second blacksmith. In the chest, we have a couple of pieces of obsidian, some apples, some more iron, some iron pants, and an iron sword. To save myself crafting the iron sword from earlier if I knew this chest was around. But sometimes you just get unlucky. After this, I then head out down the ground to have a quick tussle with a creeper. Taking advantage of my flying ability, as well as being able to poison things on hit, I easily deal with the creeper without it blowing up in my face. I then roam around the cave system in the area and collect bits of coal and iron that I could spot. As we come to the end of the first day, head back into the village and sleep in one of the beds. Day 2, I would get prepped to head into the massive cave system that's just around the area of spawn. As I start exploring the area, I notice that it's a pretty big area where there's several different ravines cross-secting into one massive, weird, big open area. With the help of normal cave generation, intertwines all the different ravines together into this massive open space. After finding the spot that I want to start my strip mine in, work my way back up to the surface from that direct area and set up a small little house up the top. Of course, in essence of being a bee, this house is more themed after a beehive being floating off the ground with some trees surrounding it. The way in or out to the outside world is through the windows. Of course, on a later date, I do intend to improve this. So after setting up the furnace and crafting table as well as the chest upstairs, go to sleep for the night and wake up on day 3 to go back down and start mining again. The aim is to collect a good portion of resources that we can use to start prepping for the next couple of days. One of the big things in tow is a good collection of diamonds. In the mining session on day 3, I do collect around 20 diamonds, which when I get the first 2, I immediately turn it into a diamond pickaxe, or to use that once my iron pickaxe finally breaks, I continue to collect more and more resources. About halfway through day 4, I decide to go back up to the surface and explore the savanna biome in my area. The thing that stopped me from doing this a lot sooner is the fact that I have a massive dose of mining fatigue if I stay in hot biomes for too long. Not the annoying mining fatigue you get from the 𝓵𝓷𝓷𝓼, but just a mining fatigue 1, which is still annoying nevertheless. Anyway, I start exploring into the savannah and I immediately come across another village. Honestly, pretty lucky spawn. The fact that there's village to one end of the area that I can see immediately from spawn, and by going over the first hill in the savanna biome, I see a second village immediately. In for a good ride. I raid through this village and grab as many items that I find as useful, explore it a bit, and head back to base when night approaches. We go to sleep and close day 4. On day 5, we head back down to the mines again in order to collect a bit more obsidian to finish off the nether portal that I started to create using the obsidian that we found on day 1. It's my normal technique of mining for obsidian. Normally I would go through with some water over the top of me to get any lava and immediately turn into obsidian the moment it becomes present. But with the bee's weakness to water, I had to do it a little bit of a different way. But either way, I would gather up all the obsidian I need, I'd head into the nether and explore the area that I have to near myself. Lucky for me, ironically, I don't know why I'm getting this lucky, there's just so happened to be a nether fortress not too far in one direction. Seriously, I have no idea why I'm getting this lucky, it's just whatever. To find out this information, I briefly go back to the overworld and go back to mining to collect enough diamonds to do a full set of diamond armor, and before the end of day 5, we had a full set of diamond armor. Over the course of the next couple of days, I'd start grinding up gear in order to start prepping up an enchantment table of sorts. On day 6, I pretty much spent the entire day exploring the area to grab as much sugarcane as physically possible, even going going way into the night of day 6. Day 7, after making a slow flight back to my base, I would start the crafting of bookshelves and killing some more mobs that could give me leather, including but not limited to the cows and horses. In days 8, 9, and 10, I would start exploring the village, starting to set up different villages, a librarian villager and a couple of farming villages in order to start being able to collect some emeralds, as well as setting up myself a small farm. Right now the current plan is by day 20 I'd be getting ready to have the enchantments in order necessarily to go and survive within the Nether. Biggest aim of this is in order to get a bow with infinity on it so I can fly around and shoot things from a distance. Over the next 10 days I do plan to start revamping my starting area. I feel like I've already started to outgrow this beautiful cobblestone box. I feel like it's a great idea to start moving on and start building a proper base area. The first thing I do on day 11 is I start heading over to the Dark Oaks forest that we came across earlier. Unfortunately this is a good 800 blocks away, so after going over there I realized I forgot to bring an axe along with me. Using the supplies I had there I made a stone axe. After collecting a couple of stacks of dark oak logs and a collection of saplings, I started to head back. Now, unfortunately it's already night at this point, so I've got the slowness debuff and the hunger debuff and all the other beautiful debuffs you get as a bee at night time, so the 800 block journey back was kinda slow and long. So once I finally got back to base I headed to bed to transition to the next day. Right within the next day I immediately planted down the collection of dark oak saplings that I collected over at the other area in order to collect some more of that wood later on down the line. But also start then working on some basic designs for the new structure that I was going to be building, but then quickly realized I didn't exactly want to use dark oak's wood for the main structure of the build. So instead I collect all the oak trees that I put around the base originally and plant all the saplings out in an area to start farming up some more oak. I would then go back to playing around with some design ideas and start coming up with some ideas. The idea behind the build that I'll be building for my main base is going to be some form of a decent sized tree. This tree is also going to have a large rootal structure in the underground, all being able to connect right back to the main trunk of the tree itself. Either way, over the next couple of days I've built this tree, start the beginnings of my new base area. And instead of skipping all this, I'm going to give you a time lapse of me building it. day 20, I would start clearing out the land and trying to flatten it out a little bit more, going through and filling up the little bit creeper holes that are around the area, as well as the small cave zone. After doing this, I would start going back underground in order to start grinding out some levels on the ores and all that again, in order to try and get over level 30, so I can get ready to start enchanting more things. So on day 21, after exploring the mines for a little while, I collected enough levels to do some more enchanting. I went out and harvested some more sugarcane in order to craft some more bookshelves. And I went out and hunted spiders for a bit to get enough string to build a bow, and I enchanted said bow. Got quite a few crappy enchants and tried over and over again until I finally got a lucky one with infinity, then amply realized I wasn't even recording. Anyhow, after getting this new bow, I would finally head back into the Nether once again in order to start grinding out some blaze rods. The main reason why I waited so long to do this is I've got the big disadvantage of being a bee with a lot less health than the average player, meaning that taking any hits from the blaze could ultimately end up to my death. I took quite a few hits. Almost every single time I was left with 1.5 hearts and had to fly back through the portal to go find some flowers and quickly heal back up before going back. From day 22 to 26, I was grinding out the mobs in the Nether, and ironically this little spot seems to spawn a lot of wither skeletons, to the point that I somehow managed to get 2 wither skulls before even getting 6 blaze rods. Either way, I ended up getting around 7 blaze rods, as I feel like that's going to be a nice number considering we may lose some ender eyes when they break on our journey to go to the ender portal. But after collecting the blaze rods, I started messing around with the enderman in the Nether area. I started to play around using my 1 block height as an advantage in order just to hide little spots and get angry at endermen and let them attack me, or at least try to while I attack back in my little prime position. Either way, by day 28, I was ready to start my journey to find a stronghold. I'd collected 14 eyes of ender. Ironically, it ends up becoming completely perfect, because on the journey there, we managed to lose 3 of them to breaking. And by the time we finally made it to the stronghold, there was only 1 of them in there. I mean, we got pretty damn lucky with the fact that I had 11 eye of enders left when I finally made it to the stronghold, which was absolutely perfect the amount that we need because only 1 spawned in the portal. Either way, we put all the eyes of enders in and we open up the portal. Now, when I was first coming up to this point, I was kind of thinking that there would be a high chance that this would be difficult and I would not be able to do it. That this would be the point where my hardcore run would end, that I would die to the ender dragon. But something I completely forgot to factor in was the sheer fact that my levitation flies slow enough that I can just easily avoid anything the dragon would throw at me, as well as being out of the way and hard to reach for him to actually hit me directly. So the fight was kind of a piece of cake. Here's a short time lapse of it happening anyway, because it still took a bit. And there we have what was probably the easiest ender dragon fight I've ever had. Aside from it taking a bit of time to do this, it was quite easy to be honest. And at this point in time, I don't quite feel like going throughout the end islands just yet, as I don't exactly have any yet necessary loot to collect from there. Instead, we'll head back to the overworld for now and we'll think of what we're doing next. Over the next couple of days, I'll do little bits and pieces around the area. Using all the levels that I collected from being the ender dragon, I started to enchant all of my gear. I finally made myself a diamond sword. I went to an ender dragon's fight with an iron sword still, don't at me. As well as mostly unenchanted gear, don't at me again. And with that, we managed to get a good buff of enchantments for ourselves, and then as well as using a book that we found from the libraries in the stronghold, we managed to get ourselves a really sharp sword. Of course, how everything goes, I had to get a few different diamond pickaxes, I had to grind them a few times and re-enchantment a couple times in order to get anything with either fortune or silk touch. I would eventually do so. I'll continue to do the little bits around my area to tidy up a little bit more, collect a few more items, start farming a little more, getting more emeralds, and doing all these bits and pieces. We then head out to my local desert in order to find some sand, get some sand to pick up and turn into other bits and pieces for some glass. I encountered a very hidden underground desert temple that was just barely sticking out. So after gathering the string and the bones from inside of those chests and leaving behind the golden apple, which really pains me to do, but I know that they're completely and utterly useless to me on this playthrough, go and mine up some more sand before dark and head back to base. Closing off day 34. And I finally decided that I would actually go out and explore the outer end island. Honestly, I kind of regret making this decision, because of the fact that the bee flies so damn slowly that it's so slow to get around anywhere far. That I spent an entire 5 days only ever encountering 2 different end cities. Either way, with the levitation being the thing that makes me fly, it's very easy to counter the levitation effect that the shulker boxes give you. I can simply just deactivate it when I get given it. That's exactly how my flying ability works. As well as at the same time, to coincide with that, it didn't even seem like that the bullets that the shulkers were shooting at me was actually doing any damage whatsoever. So of course, after floating around for a bit, killing some more shulkers and just doing bits and pieces in order to grind out the end city for all the shulker boxes that it has, as well as the bits and pieces of loot, I managed to get a slight upgrade in diamond pants with a slightly better protection enchantment on it. We'd head back to exploring again to find another end city, this time with an elytra ship. Either way, I'd head up to that elytra ship, kill the shulker boxes in there, and just try out the elytra and see if it would even be useful. Considering the fact that I already have the ability to fly, I didn't feel like the elytra would be useful in any way, shape, or form. In reality, it can be useful. I can still have the ability to activate it in flight, but it tends to be a really weird thing with it, considering the fact that it really depends on if it's going to work or not, based upon whether I'm in levitation mode already when I press the spacebar again, or whether I wasn't in levitation mode and I'm just falling, which completely makes running with an elytra just very difficult and annoying to begin with. But still, if I want to, the option is still there for me to try out. Anyway, after gathering 12 different shulker shells, I decided it was finally time to head back to the main end island and head back to base. When I finally made it back to the overworld, I'd realized that 5 whole days had already passed in the midst of doing the exploration in the end. Either way, I make my new shulker boxes and then head to sleep for the next day and close off day 40. On day 41, I decided it's finally time to start working on the underground section of my base area. But of course, the ideas I have in mind require a lot of logs. So for day 41 and 42, I roam around just breaking down oak wood trees everywhere, here, there, and getting as much wood as I possibly can. Getting around 7.5 stacks of oak wood logs. The main aim that I want to do with this is to continue the beautiful log-based design all the way throughout the underground sections of the building. There are of course going to be wooden planks built in to factor in a bit of design, like where I actually built into the tree myself and not just the tree root. I want to use as much logs as possible to factor in like these are the roots of the tree and I've made my home within them. At least that's the principle of the design idea behind my base. It's pretty weird considering that I'm meant to be a bee, but that's just kind of like the best idea I had, that it wasn't just going to be the basic beehive thing on a massive tree. I wanted to make sure that I incorporate this massive tree that I'm going to be making into my main home itself. Either way, I get to work on doing that by removing all the dirt in the general area of the room that I'm already using, as well as extending the log trunks all the way down to the first bits of stone in the area, as well as add a new room for my chests and all these other bits and pieces that are going to be placing in there. And it's going to be more of a room that was joined onto the tree and wasn't a part of the actual tree roots itself. This is going to be something that I will do quite a lot within this series of 100-day videos. I'll start building this nicely designed area that will be put after a certain idea in my head, instead of just half-assing a random house that I only use once or twice. Instead, I want to make a really cool looking base that you guys can go through if I decide to give the world out. Now, one of the other aims that I want to have done by the end of the first set of 100 days, so we've built up a nice villager network and have gained a fair amount of emeralds. So the next thing I start doing for the next couple of days is to expand my potato farm. Because right now I only have 2 sets of villagers that I actually actively trade with. One of them I do a lot of paper with, and the other one has potatoes for trade. The next aim being is farm as many potatoes as I possibly can, so we make bigger potato farm. I finished making the farm, or expanding the farm at least, I decided to go back to working on the underground sector of my base. Of course, as usual, I still don't have enough logs, so I have to go around and get some more logs around the area yet again and collect another couple of stacks. Anyway, after collecting a couple of stacks, I start digging out a new tunnel area that I could be used for as a hallway to connect to a new system of rooms that I plan on making. Either way, I dig out the tunnel and make the new flooring, walls, and roofing. And when looking back through the tunnel to the main area, I realized that I want to fix the wall and make the oak wood go all the way down to the main mining area down below. Either way, I keep going up and down to build up the walling to go all the way down to the new mining section, which with the parts that I was doing, it started to make the area look really nice. Unfortunately, on my last round going back up top to go to the logs all the way back down again, I encountered 4 creepers in the main tunnel because I completely forgot about lighting up the tunnel. Absolute genius moment from me here. Anyway, after repairing the damage done by the creepers, went back and completed the logs all the way down to the bottom of the area, completing the beautiful look that I was going for. After completing that, I head back to sleep and close off day 50, marking the halfway point of the world. The next collection of things that I want to try and do is pretty up the farm area. Not only that, but also finish off the expansion part of the farm. So I decided to make a windmill in the middle of the farm at the back end of it. Pretty much amongst all this entire time, finally when I would start making my windmill, I would continue expanding the farm, trading with villagers over and over again until I had all of these things done by the end of the next couple of days. Of course, and amongst this, I realized I wanted to use wool for the actual windmill part of it. I'd go around, start gathering sheep around the area and start shearing them for their wool. I would also run out of wood again and would have to tear down my tree farm for the numerous times that I've done so in this video. But by the end of day 55, I've got a beautiful looking windmill and my potato farm is fully expanded to the entire area that I planned it out to be in. And honestly, it ultimately ended up looking pretty nice. Well worth the 5 days of just endlessly doing the same monotonous thing over and over again. The next thing I want to do is I want to start building some cool little farms, but that requires some backup of iron. And unfortunately, I used the last of my iron when making an anvil a couple of days prior. Either way, for the next couple of days, we're heading back down into the mine. But first, here's a time lapse of me building the windmill. Anyhow, I finally fused my pickaxe that I found from my end rating, which had efficiency 5, unbreaking 3, and mending on it, as well as curse of vanishing. But considering we're playing hardcore mode, the vanishing curse really doesn't matter. With my fortune 3 pickaxe, because this was almost broken. Either way, with my new pickaxe in tow, I go down and do another mining section, trying to collect as much iron as I possibly can in a short amount of time. Ironically, what I found out through this adventure is if I go into a hot biome when I'm deep underground, I will still get the mining fatigue that occurs in hot biomes. Which, not gonna lie, kind of annoying when it has to slow me down when I'm in the middle of mining. It means I just have to back out of that area and go in a completely different direction. I also mined into a ravine at one point that had water in it, and I almost got killed by that. Extraordinarily fun experience, that one. And of course, because I've already got diamonds, I'm finding diamonds like it's nobody's business, and because I wasn't caring about getting them for this mining session, I accidentally lost a few to lava. But at the end of the day, I've already got enough diamonds to make a full set of tools, all the rest of it, so I don't exactly need more. Probably the fun part that I've enjoyed about mining as a bee is the fact that I only need to do a 1 block high tunnel, and I'm still just as fast as I would be if I was doing a 2 block high tunnel. In fact, I'm slightly faster when moving about because I only have to worry about mining 1 block of the tunnel. And I also do not have to waste any coal on making torches because nothing can spawn in a 1 block height area. And just for a bit of reference, baby zombies cannot spawn in a 1 block high area regardless of the fact that they're 1 block high. Because how the normal zombie spawning works, the game decides where it wants to spawn a zombie and will also decide whether it's going to be a normal zombie, a zombie with armor, or a baby zombie. Meaning, so you require a baby zombie, you have to have a 2 block high area regardless of the fact that it's 1 block high. Either way, mining 1 blocks is always fun because I don't have to worry about torches ever, and because I have ultra bright on for the sake of making the recording look good, it's always fine. Anyhow, after mining for a couple of days, I came back up at day 16 and started working on my first redstone based project. As I started to develop the entire thing, I went back to one of my older survival worlds to get the ideas from one of my old farms that I used to use. After starting to build it up in my new hardcore world, I immediately realized that I'm going to need more iron. Yeah, apparently stuck wasn't enough because I'm an idiot, so I have to go back down and mine for another couple of days. But this time I did a somewhat longer mining session to collect as much iron as I possibly can. I think I got around 3 stacks of it, which should hopefully be enough for what I plan to do. Either way, here's the time lapse, let's roll. Now, what you might begin to notice with this section here, I do record these sections by section. I don't do it all at once, just so I can like keep what I have and what I do in the world in my mind, so I can speak it out in voice line and put it over the top of the footage. We continue for like the third time round. I go back to trying to build my new farm, and then find out again that not even several stacks of iron was enough. So we again go back underneath the underground and go mining again for another hour or two, which is honestly just insane, the sheer amount of iron I need for this simple project. You see, I'm trying to make a simple automated pumpkin farm, but the unfortunate part is it requires a lot of hoppers, which means I need a lot of iron. And unfortunately, that requires many different stacks of iron in order to make these things correctly. I have enough to actually go all the way underneath the entire thing. So instead of showing you the mining part, I'm just going to show you the parts where I'm actually building the farm, because I'm sure you've gotten sick enough of those mining time lapses. I've just done 2 in the past 5 minutes. Usually the timeline was going to be get this farm up to a nice villager section and something else afterwards, but now I pretty much have to shorten it down, that I'll probably get this pumpkin farm done by around day 80 or 85. I'm not 100% sure. And then in the last 15 days we used to build a villager trading hall and off the video on. The good thing about this multi-hour long mining session, I'm going to have far more than enough cobblestone to make my villager trading hall. I just still need more iron, because apparently I still do not have enough. So the pain of the mining continues. After a good 5 more days more of mining, I would finally have enough iron to finish off this build. But I would barely have enough. I think I had like 4 or 5 ingots left over after crafting everything that I needed. Either way, I place the last of my hoppers on the underside of the farm, and I start crafting myself a collection of pistons, and I head into the nether to get enough cores to craft up some observers. I would start to put together the final build. Unfortunately, this is where I run out of wood again, because I need some wood for the note blocks that I need to use in this build, and I amply realize that I forgot to replant my tree farm last time I mined it down. So I have to plant those, and then I had to wait for it to grow for a bit. So using the supplies that I already had, I started to put it all together, start putting the pistons in, the observers in. Then once I finally had enough wood, I would start putting all the note blocks in. Almost immediately after the note blocks started coming in, the machine was automatically going and breaking those pumpkins as they come in. I would then add some cobblestone on top of the note blocks, so I don't have to hear the noise of the note blocks every time they go off. I would get the 2 stacks of glass that I smelted so long ago, get the yellow dye that I collected in one of the first weeks, and make some yellow stained glass to surround the farm with, because we got to get that added touch of us being a bee and all. And finally, after 20 days of doing this farm solidly, the farm is finally complete. Definitely one of the big projects coming up along the line, if I do go for more than 100 days after this video, definitely be an iron farm at some point in the future, because my god, some of the builds I want to do require so many hoppers, it's not even funny. Either way, going to the end of day 77, we finally have the big farming projects done for the time being. Now it was time to finally get started on the villager trading hall. And first things first, we of course need to make a villager breeder. So the next 10 days will be used to make up our new villager breeder, so we have an infinite source of villagers. Of course, there are a variety of different villager breeder designs out there on the market. There's many different ones. I've created a few of my own in the past. In today's video, we're going to be using the age-old impulse villager breeder design, aka the diamond design, as this is the villager breeder that I am most familiar with when it comes to making them, as I've made them several different times in several different multiplayer worlds and personal survival worlds. So of course, I start referencing back to one of my older survival multiplayer worlds in order to get the design and understand what it was to make it again. Either how I start gathering up all the bits and pieces to put it together, getting all my cobblestone, the glass bits that I have left over, the dirt, the potatoes, and then heading back into the nether to get some more glowstone to add for the build. And I move into the village and start making out to the design. Now, unfortunately, the village is very weird in this area, as there's a lot of caves just running through the area, so I tend to build over the top of some of these caves. Of course, later on, I do end up going through them and lighting up a good chunk of them, just so there's no mob spawning in the general vicinity of my villager breeder. Anyhow, I build my diamond, then I replace the blocks with the glowstone that goes in there, and the staircases around the edge for water pockets. I fill the inside with all the dirt that's necessary required, with the middle block being water. Fill it all out and plant all my potatoes that I'll gather from my other potato farm, replanting those as I take them as well. Get a composter and an extra piece of glowstone to pop on top of the middle water tile, then build up my cobblestone walls up to 3 blocks high, placing a piece of glass on top of each glowstone so it at least reflects light into the area. Except for one, because I ran out of glass on literally the last one, because unlucky me, I accidentally misplaced a glass way earlier on in my original last glass space build, and because I didn't have any silk touch, I broke one and lost one. Here comes the bring back karma, hey? Anyhow, after digging up the main frame, I start to dig out the front end of it in order to put my area where the other 2 villages are going to be, where I have my beds and my little village breeding spot. Get wide and open enough that the villagers can't just teleport to a certain block very nearby, and set up my rail cart system in order to move all the villagers into their new system. Over the past little while, I have been wrangling up extra villagers into one of the houses where I had my farmer villager, and I already had all of them into a minecart because I felt like that'd just be easier to keep them in control as well as get them in that house in the first place. So after making my one block opening on one side of it, I push the villagers through, they take a free bit of damage, and then head over to their new spots in the world. First villager, the farmer villager for the potatoes that will be throwing the potatoes towards our breeding villagers, got in there very easily, no problems at all. I then properly extended my rail to go all the way around to drop them into the breeding area, but then decided not to put any blocks to stop them from going any further, which would become a mistake I'd make in the further, because when I push the villagers through into this new rail, they'll fly way over onto the open space. So I just quickly fix up the rail design and link it all back up so I can get the villagers in there, and then put stopping blocks so they fall into the trapdoor hole where they're meant to be sitting. Push them in one by one, break their cart, and they're all in there functional, ready to go. And now the villagers are currently breeding. Now to move on to the final thing that will be done in this first 100 days, that is to make the villager trading center. Over the next 5 days, I'd slowly work on my villager trading hall, just working on it bit by bit, going off little design ideas, experimenting with different bits and pieces, trying to have a cool design to go through with it all. Around this time, a couple of the villagers actually escaped from their breeding grounds and I had to wrangle them back in. The wandering trader decided to make his first ever appearance. I'm honestly surprised it took him this long to appear. With, of course, the worst ever trades that you can ever get, so he was immediately killed because, of course, that's what he's useful for. On day 96, I would finally start moving over my past two villagers. I'd spend day 96 moving over my farmer villager and then day 97 moving over my librarian villager. Over the next few days, I will start grinding out trading, getting as many emeralds as I can. We end off this series with around a stack of them. Now we are at day 100, and you know what? I think it's finally time to use my secondary ability that I have not used this entire playthrough. Don't worry, I have a backup of this world. Or do I?